Hello everyone, this is DCHL Devin here, and welcome to another how to play and how to buy video. And today we're going to be discussing the long-awaited topic of Numenor. And this is actually a very rare faction to see on the tabletop. Beautiful when it actually shows up. So hopefully a lot of people start collecting this army, because I would love to fight against it more often. Heck, I'd love to own it myself. So in these videos, we go ahead into the strengths, weaknesses, how to play, and how to buy for under $100. And we're going to be covering this faction as if it is a lone faction for the most part. So as far as strengths, keep in mind there's not a lot to this force. The entire force comprises of 4 models. So this is going to be a fairly short video in comparison to the others. So with the strengths, we can only say a couple things. Number one, high fight value. In this game now, Fight 4 is just the necessary that you need. Most armies are still kind of in the range of Fight 3, but you're starting to see quite a lot of them hit that Fight 4 era. And it's important to have Fight 4. It guarantees winning fights. Not guarantees, but it really it encourages winning more fights and such, and you're just absolutely going to need it. It is frustrating to know your opponent rolled a 6 and there's nothing you can do about it. So short of fighting elves, you're pretty good to go with this army. Also, you have excellent heroes. Now, this is the best part about this army. This is one I would say, of all the strengths, this is the top tier. It's got some very strong heroes at very cheap costs. So you have Elendil, who can call free hero combats every turn, and his stat line is absolutely amazing. He's got some of the best stat lines in the game, and because of that hero combat, he really helps mitigate the weaknesses of your force, allowing him to fight twice, multiple times, just tearing through the opposing army. Next, you have Isildur. Now, fortunately, I've made this video after the new FAQ. Many of you remember those days where Isildur was this invisible horseman running around and slaughtering the opponent, and even reducing the fight value of your opponent. Those days are gone, unfortunately, a lot to the dismay of many Numenorian players out there. Now, Isildur cannot use the ring while on horse, but that doesn't make him a bad choice. He's still fairly cheap, and even if you took his ring away entirely, his stat line is actually pretty solid. He's a pretty great option. So I still would absolutely pick him. And in fact, if I have to pick a high tier hero, I would suppose I might pick Isildur over Elendil just to keep those numbers at play. You're gonna need numbers with this force. Also, you have you stay relatively cheap due to lack of other options. So many of their options will entice you into all these elite choices that will make you a fairly small force. But because everything in your army is cheap, including your heroes, that makes you you stay at a pretty healthy numbers. Generally, in most 600-700 point games, you have 4 warbands. So that is something that can easily be said about this force, is you'll outnumber slightly your opponents. Also, should have covered on this about the heroes, the captains. Most of the time, the captains aren't anything of note, but these, you have 50-point captains that are Fight 5. That is incredible. That's great stuff for you. Now, against Elven players, that might be negligible, but other than that, you are actually outfighting most everything in the game. Fight 5 captains that are spammable and just ripping and tearing through the opposing lines. And like I said, because you stay relatively cheap, you probably have 4 or 5 of these guys. Your ultimate mission, I must say, this army wins with its heroes. That is its fighting mechanism. It's actually very similar to Lake Town in this way. So you will need to max out your heroes to get as many of these captains as you can, and if you want, throw in Isildur or Elendil, or both if you really want to at larger point games. So that's really it, though. There's, like I said, only 3 heroes and 1 troop type, so there's not else much that we can say. They have strength 2 bows, but at least they have an option for a bow. They have spear options, so that's always good. So they're your regular run-of-the-mill fighting force once you take away, all the strengths. As far as weaknesses, defense 4 is a bit of a problem. Yeah, you might find that a little weird, but Numenor is a defense 4 army, gets defense 5 with a shield. So really only your archers stay at defense 4 for the most part. Everyone arms them up with shields. So at the base cost of 7, normally actually people think of them as 8 instead, and just a spearman jumping to 9. Kind of similar in the way Gondor does it, but once again, because you don't have all these elite options, because your heroes are cheap, you generally can just spam these guys out a little bit more. Next, you have low strength. Now, when I say low strength, really I should say average strength. You have strength 3. So you don't get very much stronger than that. You don't have any access to axes. Well, I guess you'd arm all your guys with axes, but we all know that's going away, so I guess if you're going to do it now. And then you have a lack of options, which I've already covered. But you don't have any cav elements. You don't have anything else that will really help you in a lot of scenarios. So that is it. That's really the rundown of the force. There's not much I can say when the force is this generic, because I mean, even in other armies where you don't really have that much, like let's say Hobbits or Lake Town only has one troop option, it still has a plethora of variety with the heroes that you don't really mind that. But that's just the way this one works. So how to play this army. This is, number one is you still want to take a couple of bows. You want your opponent to come to you. So bows are still important in this force, but you really want to make sure you have a lot of heroes. Huracanbats are going to be your friend, and ultimately you want to rip and tear through the opposing army. You want to have just minimum 5 heroes, I would say, personally. I'd almost even wonder if I should reduce the numbers of an existing warband. Let's say it's like 600 points, and you have 4 warbands. I almost would take some out if I can get another captain in there. I mean, the captains are just a beautiful addition into this force. They're necessary for you to win games. And you're just, for the most part, you're going to fight pretty much like a solid battle line, obviously adjusting tactics for hurls, because hurls will tear through your defense 4, defense 5. So adjusting tactics for that. Otherwise, stay in that battle line. Keep stacked dice. You definitely want banners, because remember, with your higher fight value, if you're higher than your opponent, every single dice extra that you get exponentially increases your chances of winning, not just doubles or triples, because it's that much more increasing your chances of getting a 6, which is an auto win for you. So you definitely want the banners, and also many missions now require banners, so there's always that. But other than that, you're going to want it to rip through your force, your opponent's force, with your heroes as your army kind of, holds the line in itself. You don't have any magic, and because of the existence of magic in this game is the reason I hesitate to bring Elendil. Elendil will be shut down. It won't take very much. So if you're playing in a 700 game point or higher, don't bother bringing him. He's not moving. I'm telling you now, the whole game he won't. He's just going to sit there. So just bring the lower, cheaper guys and spam out the troops and go that direction. At lower point games where magic is a little less prevalent, but even still kind of there, then you can justify Elendil, as long as you can create other threat options. Before, when Isildur had the ring, then I might have encouraged Elendil a little bit, because he would take magic off of Isildur, who would wait for Hate, the Drain, Courage, or Compel. But nowadays, I almost would just say stick with the regular guys. Elendil only in lower point games. So other than that, that is the force plays in a very simplistic manner. There isn't too much about this. It's really a fluff army. This is not a super competitive army. It's not going to win you a tournament. Who knows? I mean, Mikolaj just won Desolation of Stockport with a high elf army, and I wouldn't have predicted that. But then again, he did have a lot of magic in it, he had like Saruman and such. So maybe if you could ally in some Saruman and ally in some like high elf forces, and I say high elves most specifically because you pretty much get them with this force, and you'll see what I mean by that in a second. But high elves are a very common add, so you can actually play your full Last Alliance force. Obviously, Saruman throws that off a little bit, but that is a route or direction you can go. And I mean, you're definitely going to want allies. If you want to be competitive, you have to bring some allies. Not necessarily magic, but just some allies. Maybe some Rivendell Knights. Bring them along, and maybe you can get that hard-hitting force with Elendil right beside them or something like that. As for the how to buy section, this is another rare video where it is very difficult for me to say how to buy this army for under $100 using strictly Games Workshop. Normally, I like to avoid eBay and avoid all that stuff because, you know what, you're just starting in the game, you want to buy this force, how are you going to get it? At the retailer themselves. And Games Workshop bundles these guys in with the High Elves. So when you buy a Last Alliance box, you only get 4 of these dudes, and then you get like 8 High Elves. And then your only other option is Spearmen. So you can either pay $44 for that bundle I just told you about and get 4 men, or you can pay $26 and get the Spearmen. In other words, it's impossible. You can't do it. You need a plastic box set that at least has all these guys. If it was $44 for just one box, where it was a box of just all the Numenorians, then I could say, all right, buy 2 boxes of them, 1 box of Spearmen, proxy the Spearmen as captains, and you're good to go. Just, shield with the warriors and let the captains rip through people. I don't know. But unfortunately, it's not possible to do. So without the existence of allies, eBay is going to be the way. You're going to have to get this force. It's very unfortunate, but it is one of the reasons it is so rare. Not because necessarily it's so expensive. Well, I guess it's expensive in that way, but it's just so hard to get even through the main company themselves. So hopefully we see another option on this, but I highly doubt we will. I would not hold your breath. The Last Alliance box kit has been the main way to get Numenor for a decade plus. I mean, since the game started. So I would not expect them to ever release a Numenor box. I would absolutely expect you must buy these on a third-party website like eBay or something like that. So hopefully, guys, this was a little bit informative. I know this is a shorter video than the other How to Play, How to Buy series, but this is a very simple faction, as I mentioned. If you guys have anything to add, let me know. I probably missed something. So I'll talk to you very soon.